Hello and welcome back, friends. It is that time of the month again that we are putting together another State of the Game video. This time it'll be for December 2025. So just in case you're unfamiliar with this and you're newer to the channel, what I do is I create a video once a month that sort of recaps everything that happened in the previous month and then sort of looks forward to everything happening in the month to come, just so that you can all prepare and get ready for what's going to be available for us to do in Empires and Puzzles and kind of recap how they did with what they tried to accomplish in the previous month. So that being said, let's go ahead and look at what is going to be on the menu for today. So as you can see, we have quite a few things to go over here. And as you're taking a look through, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, I'm not sure you covered Soul Exchange. I promise you I did. I threw it under the quality of life changes down there, but let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the stuff. So we're going to start things out with the power creep tracker, as we always do. Then we're going to have our gem pull challenges. There were two of them, and we'll get into the details of that. The Brave and the Beautiful event were released, so it's worth talking about that as well. The Temple Summon has arrived. These were the heroes that were originally introduced to us in the Summer Solstice video, so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then we also have Monster Island returning. That has been on a long hiatus. It's definitely fun to go over that. Black Friday Portal is on its very last day today, so we'll discuss that as well. Our quality of life changes, of course, our meta changes so that you know what to be prepared for in December, and then, of course, the December calendar review. So there's quite a few things to go through. We'll go ahead and get into it starting now. All right, so first up, we have our Power Creep Tracker. We do this every month. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Power Creep, this is a tool designed to just sort of keep the game flowing forward. It's to ensure that newer heroes will always be better than older heroes, etc. I have gone over this in previous months. If you want a more in-depth explanation, you're welcome to listen to those videos as well. But basically what I do is I track the difference in the power between heroes released at the beginning of a month and at the end of the month. So in this case, this Power Creep Tracker will be from November 1st all the way to the last day of November. So in that time period, we saw an increase of 9 CP from heroes being released at the beginning of November to the end of November. Just so you know, what my goal is in Power Creep, or what I like to see, is that we stay right around 10 CP a month. I think that's a pretty reasonable rate. 10 to 15, I think, is okay, depending on the number of heroes that they released for the month. Under is always appreciated, because the lower the Power Creep is, the longer your characters stay relevant. And we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into leveling them. We do want them to stay relevant for a significant amount of time. But at the same time, we need the newer stuff to be more important as well, because that's how this game continues to make money, and this is a for-profit industry. If they're not making money, we're not going to have a game to play, I promise you. They'll just shut it down. So there has to be ebb and flow with that. 9 for this particular month is great. That's under the goal of 10, though. I'm very happy to see that. They've been pretty good with it. As you can see, I've been tracking this all the way since January. There was only one month that got kind of crazy, and that was back in June. The rest of it has been more or less in line with where we'd like it to be, and it does bring us to a year-to-date CP creep of 145. Now, we do have 1 month left to go for the end of the year, but if they stay somewhere within this 10 range, it looks like we'll be at about 155-ish for the year. Still a little bit higher than my ultimate goal of 120. That would be 10 CP times 12, but still within the acceptable margin, I think, maybe slightly above it, but much better than they've done in previous years. So kudos to the Empires and Puzzles teams for slowing down the power creep a bit and sticking with that. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. Okay, next up, let's talk about the gem pulls for rewards that they had set up for this month. And I say for rewards because it kind of changed what kind of rewards they went with. Previous month, we were dealing with gem challenge pulls for items. And honestly, I had talked about how I felt like this was a significant downgrade in what we were receiving for competing in the challenges. I do believe there's a lot of value in getting 5-star characters in this game, and it's what made the gem challenge pulls so very exciting to receive at least a guaranteed 5-star, which is hard to do in this game for a lot of players, especially our more free-to-play players. I think that creating a challenge like this gave them something to look forward to, where if they saved up their gems, they had a possibility of at least getting some sort of new 5-star to expand their roster. Well, in this particular case, they still did one additional gem challenge pull here, but I will say this, they did it for one pull, which I thought was quite interesting. I never expected they would ever do a challenge that required just a single gem pull. And the rewards were actually pretty decent. As you can see here, they went ahead and said you would receive 2 pulls for doing 1 pull for gems. Now, the quality of those pulls varied quite a bit. You had your challenge coins, your elemental, your untold, the pickup summons, or the epic hero tokens. So I do feel like there was a certain amount of value in this. It was probably a 300 gem buy-in, because in reality that was what the good portals were at the time. But still, for 300 gems, you then received a chance to pull something, but also 2 more pulls for a later portal that you could use. There was some value in that. I thought it was a cool way to sort of wrap up this concept, because they also then decided, instead of continuing this gem challenge for pulls, that they would bring us back to a gem challenge for a guaranteed 5-star hero. And let's go ahead and move into that part next. All right, and here we have it. So they decided to give us another gem challenge poll, this time for 20 polls, and it was going to give us another guaranteed 5-star hero. I was very excited to see this when it did come back out. It's the type of thing that I think has a lot more value and really does give people a reason to want to sort of store up some gems and be ready for this sort of challenge when it does arrive. This particular time, we shifted away from having individual families as the focus or theme behind the poll, and instead, it took me a moment to realize what they were going for, but they went with the theme of dispellers. So all of the characters here could dispel in one way or another, and even more importantly, 7 of the 10 were actually priority dispellers. This is a very powerful ability to use in Empires and Puzzles, and definitely something everyone should want for their roster. So to create a poll like this that gave you a hero that did this specifically would allow a lot of people to get the utility into their roster that they need to succeed for wars and raiding and all of that fun stuff. So I was a big fan of this one, and I did recommend to people that if they wanted to participate, this was a good portal to consider doing. Now, I did choose myself to participate because I have a lack of dispellers in my particular roster. I only have like 2. And even then, they're usually single target or target nearby. So it was really cool concept for me, and I did participate. I got lucky, and I pulled Louis in mine. That allowed me to have a priority dispel all, and I am currently working on leveling him up. It was a very cool event. Plus, I did additional polls in a portal. I believe this was up at the exact time as the Brave and the Beautiful event, which we will talk about in a moment. And I'm pretty sure I did both of my 10 polls there. I have a video of it. I could go back and double check. But I pulled nothing from the event, unfortunately, in the way of 5 stars, but I did get a guaranteed 5-star at the end of it. So you see what I mean about receiving a certain amount of value. Normally, I'd walk away from 2 10 pulls with a certain level of disappointment, correct? If I didn't pull a 5-star, I'd be like, man, I just spent all those gems. Was it really worth it? This gem challenge pull allowed me to walk away with something. And I think that is where the value exists. And not only something, but a good utility piece in a priority dispeller. So I hope everyone who was able to participate did well. I do think this was a very cool gem challenge summon. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Okay, now let's get into talking about some of the new things that occurred in the month of November that we have seen for the very first time. In this particular case, we released a brand new event. It was a new Alliance quest. So this did end up taking the place of Moths for the month, but we ended up with an event for the Brave and the Beautiful. This is introducing a brand new family of heroes, where we have the Beauty and the Beast sort of set up. They released 2 5-stars for the beginning of this event. The Beast and Rose de Flo. Now, both of these heroes are absolutely spectacular, and it's kind of what you would expect for brand new released heroes into the game that have never been seen before. But I will say this, after doing reviews on them and seeing some of them in action, they are absolute monsters. And the passive, the Beauty Within specifically, that allows them to flip status ailment damage into healing instead, is part of the reason why these guys are so incredibly strong. There are a ton of dot effects throughout the game currently, and to be able to flip those, you don't even have to resist them or even stop them from casting it, right? You're actually fine with all of that. You want those ailments on you because they just turn into heal over times instead, and there aren't really as many heal over times that will heal for as much damage as some of these ailments do. For example, I run Safafa in several of my groups. She's the Untold 2 one that does the Arctic Core. When her Arctic Core goes off, there are times where I have seen that tick for 800 damage a turn because it was fully charged and she had attack buffs up, etc. That's ridiculous, right? 800 damage a turn, first of all, that's crazy, but these characters will turn that 800 damage a turn into 800 healing a turn. And that's just from one dot effect, right? That's not to say that they couldn't be multiple dot effects, which would all be healing them instead. So it does create a massive amount of survivability in these characters, not to mention they do some other fun things. For example, Rose being the very fast healer and the Beast hitting multiple targets. And then if they have enough humility, humility being the family mechanic that these people use, they get increased specials as well. So if the Beast has enough humility, all of his hits are going to do mindless attacks when they hit as well. And for Rose, her healing goes up significantly, and she cleanses all status ailments instead of just the most recent one. It's just some very powerful effects that go into play that get even more powerful if they're able to receive enough humility to cast their specials. One thing I do like about the humility system as well is that they made it so that you don't lose any access humility you may have. In other words, let's say you overcharge your humility and then cast your special. It's only going to take off the necessary amount to cast your special and leave you with that extra humility for your next cast as well. So that being said, I think the mechanic is designed very well. Whether it's overpowered or not, that remains to be seen. I can say it's difficult to deal with. I don't know if I'm willing to say it's overpowered, but still very cool. It did release in its own event, which of course We have the multiple tiers like any alliance quest would, and as your alliance progressed through, it unlocked, the rare, the epic, and then the legendary versions. So there's some very interesting stuff that was included there. I did enjoy that they had this portal up, and it is only 3,000 gems still, even though these are brand new characters, and it allowed me to participate in the gem challenge polls and pull brand new heroes and still participate in that challenge as well. So the timing was good, the event was fun, the heroes are magnificent, and what I can't fail to mention is this is also where they are choosing to release new costumes for the Three Musketeers family. Now, the Three Musketeers family are pretty popular and interesting characters. I think it's cool that they are going to get costumes. Now, do I think that they necessarily belong within this portal? I'm not sure. I think it was a fine place to stick them because the truth is there are not a lot of heroes for this family out yet. And in this portal, you're either going to pull season 1 or the very few new characters there are here. By putting the Musketeers in there as well, they have at least created a little more variety in what you can pull. And I do think it's a good way to squeeze them in because at least the themes somewhat align. Yeah, we'll just say they somewhat align, and we'll go with that. But either way, this will mean that we should be seeing more Three Musketeer costumes, and I think there are some very fun ones. My Lady De Winter comes to mind. She was an absolute monster. I think her getting a costume would be insane. Cardinal Richelieu is another one I'd love to see costumes released for. And there's any number of them that you can sort of name off the top of your head that you might want to see a costume for. They'll be coming. We just got to be patient, and they will make their way through. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Okay, so speaking of new events, we also had the Temple Summon released for the very first time within the game. The Temple Summon is rotated around characters that we first saw in the Summoner Solstice event that went on. They were released as the sort of featured family in that event. These guys are very interesting. They give growth to themselves every single turn by giving themselves an additional at least 100 attack and defense. This is going to allow their stats to spiral into an incredibly large amount, right? Like they're going to be absolute monsters. It is something that I thought is absolutely crazy overpowered when I first saw it, but now we're going to be getting more of them, right? So we only had 2 to contend with before. Now we're going to get whatever else they choose to release. In this particular case, when they did release the portal, they put out 2 additional 5-stars, a 4-star and a 3-star, which is to be expected, right? Though that's all fine and good. What was not expected is the fact that Empires and Puzzles admitted to the fact that the event was not ready, right? They're like, oh, haha, by the way, yeah, we definitely aren't ready with the event. So sorry about that. Here's 250 coins. And you might say, that's a weird amount. Why 250 coins? If you haven't caught on by now, 250 coins is usually what you'll get from an event, or 2.5 pulls is what they will normally give as free rewards for participating and clearing through the events. So they said, hey, you know what? You can't do the event, but here's the reward you would have earned anyways. Good luck with your pulls, more or less. Listen, Bunga says, don't worry. They got this covered, right? Look at him. He's convinced. He says, fine. It's fine. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. It's not unlike Empires and Puzzles to do something like this. I mean, I think the reality is that the portal and being able to pull these heroes is the important part for staying on track for them, for the schedule they want to keep, for the release of these heroes, et cetera, et cetera. Should the event have been ready? Most likely. Who knows why it wasn't? I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying it was kind of interesting how they chose to release this, but we did get the Brave and the Beautiful event out on time, so huzzah to that. And then hopefully we'll see these guys ready to go for December, or at least their event ready to go for December. Either way, I did do some polls because I was hopeful. I didn't have any luck with this particular event, but seeing as though these guys seem to be a direct replacement for the Goblin Portal event that went out, I say that because, once again, the mechanics of this particular portal allow you to, when you pull a 5-star, get a second one, right? So that's exactly how the Goblin Portal works, or the Astral Portal works. But the odds to pull a 5-star is in line with those portals as well. So it's going to be a 0.4% chance to pull a 5-star out of this portal. That's super low, right? So it's nice that if you do pull it, you get 2. But 0.4%, I mean, you're really reaching deep for that. Like, it's not going to be often that we see these heroes trigger for us. So just understand, if you're a moderate spender or free to play, that this family is going to be a struggle to get your hands on. But if you are lucky enough on your free pulls to pull it off, you're going to get 2. So that's really awesome. And I wish everyone the best of luck with that. And we'll see if the event is, of course, ready for this next month to come. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. All right, so next thing on the agenda to talk about, we have Monster Island returning. Monster Island, gosh, this is a very interesting event in Empires and Puzzles, and it definitely is outside of the box, right? We get very used to the same sort of events occurring each month, and we know how to tackle them, and it's kind of like the same thing with a different wrapping paper on it, right? Well, Monster Island is not that at all. Monster Island is its own thing, and truly, it is perhaps one of the most interesting and engaging alliance experiences that this game has to offer. And the reason I say that is because in order to succeed in Monster Island, it is an entire alliance effort. You can't have a single individual sort of carry the team that well because it requires group effort to succeed, group effort to sort of push your alliance further. This is the type of thing where I highly recommend that your leadership of your alliance coordinate and try to run and guide your alliance to success for. It's an absolutely fascinating thing, but it has also been gone for a long time, right? So the last time we saw Monster Island was in the beginning of this year, probably somewhere around March. I don't remember exactly when, but the point is it's been like 9, probably almost 10 months since we've seen our last Monster Island. This does make me kind of sad for a few reasons. One, I think Monster Island is the type of event I'd like to see more of in the game. A little more variety, a little more fun, a little more dynamics that require you to work together and engage with your alliance mates. Yes, we all have alliance mates, but like, how often do you talk to them? How often do you engage with them, right? Create a more social experience within your alliance to build bonds and camaraderie and all of that fun stuff. Events like this do promote that sort of thing. I also think that the poor Monster Hunter families, they just don't get a lot of love, right? Like, look, this is a perfect example of which is that when this portal released, they decided that they were going to release one new character, but then feature 2 of the previous ones. Well, the problem with that is that it's been so long since Monster Island was out that the new release was like 130 or something like 130, 140 CP higher than the other 2 featured heroes in the portal. Why? Because you just took so long between Monster Islands and you didn't bother updating any stats to the older characters, right? So I guess what confused me about this, because I am very happy that they considered bringing Monster Island back, and I would like them to continue to do so. I would take more Monster Island. I would even do it once a month if they offered it, but who knows what they're going to do. But I think what they should consider doing, though, is releasing costumes for Monster Island, because the reality is you may not want to put a ton of time, energy, and effort into developing new heroes for Monster Island, but you have quite a few older heroes for Monster Island that are sitting at irrelevancy, right? They've just gotten too old to be of much significance. Now, in Monster Island, with the amount of buffs that they gave them, yes, you could use them in that event specifically, but just think about how nice it would be if these people could start bringing those Monster Island characters back into their regular roster. I think it wouldn't be hard to release costumes for these guys, much like you're doing with the 3 Musketeers or the Magic family, stuff like that. We're seeing costumes to make them relevant once more. Just go ahead and do it for Monster Island 2. Don't release a portal with such a drastic drop-off between the one featured and the other 2 featured in there. Like, it makes it very obvious that there hasn't been a lot of effort, time, or energy put into Monster Island. And I think that just creating some quick costume updates might save your development staff from having to do too much work, but also still give people something to look forward to when Monster Island comes around. So that's really all I have to say about Monster Island. I would love to see more of it, and I would love it if they at least considered releasing costumes if they're not going to continue to push out multiple new heroes with each of these Monster Island portals. All right, let's go ahead and move ourselves on to our next topic. Okay, so this brings us to the Black Friday summon, which of course has been going on for the previous week. Today is the last day of the Black Friday summon. Gosh, I have so many thoughts on this. Like, here's the thing about the Black Friday summon. They do gimmick summons all the time. I am a sucker for a gimmick summon. Like, I have been for all of them this year and the previous years that I've been playing. Like, they're some of my favorite portals to pull from. And I do like how they all have their sort of own gimmicks and sort of twists to them. In the past, they were doing ones where if you pulled a 5-star, you were guaranteed a second 5-star. Stuff like that was fun because it did give you more 5-stars. In this one, rather than offer you additional 5-stars, they're doing a different gimmick where they said anything you pull out of this portal is going to be leveled in some way, right? And it could be leveled all the way from 2 ascended tiers all the way up to double limit broken and all the way done at 90, right? So like that created an extra level and dynamic to this portal, which I think made it very interesting. The other thing worth noting is that they've decided to reduce the cost of the Black Friday portal. One thing that's been true is that they've been sort of increasing the cost of more interesting portals. It used to be that 3,600 was the top. Now we've been seeing 3,900 as like the new standard premium portal buy-in point, right? And that's not exciting. I don't think any of us want to be spending more gems, right? Like, especially for 10 pulls at like a 1% chance or whatever nonsense percent they decide to give us. Sometimes it's even lower. That being said, they did change this. First of all, the pull odds were 3.6% or something like that. They're pretty high for these types of portals, pretty high. And then they said, hey, listen, we're going to reduce the cost to 3,000 gems for a 10 pull instead of that 3,900 price point you've been seeing previously. And we can talk about the 30 gem polls, but I usually do the 10 polls because there's more players that are in that 10 poll price range, I think, than are doing 30 polls left and right. There are plenty of people out there doing lots of 30 polls, and if you Google up Black Friday polls, you're going to see videos of people doing upwards of 600 polls. I think was the highest one I saw. I mean, that's nonsense. Like, that's just too much. So, that being said, I think 3,000 gems was a good price point, a good buy-in for this. You got a lot of value out of it. And why did you get this value? Well, one, you have some of the best pull odds on a 5-star. 3.6%, great, right? So if you figure that out, that's on average about 1 in 30 pulls, it's saying should more or less give you a 5-star if you're playing the statistical odds. Now, granted, there's no guarantee on that, right? Like, sometimes it's going to be worse, sometimes it's going to be better, etc. I myself did a couple 10 polls, and I can tell you that the first 10 poll I got a single 5-star. The second 10 poll, I got 2 5-stars, right? So like there was some variance, but luckily each of my 10 polls that I personally did at least yielded a single 5-star or better. But there's more to it than just that. What was a happy coincidence here, or not really a coincidence, but a happy happenstance, if you will, is that you are getting leveled characters in 3 and 4 stars as well. And that means that with that in mind, you can get a lot of roster depth. And that roster depth can be very, very helpful because the truth is a lot of us are leveling 5 stars and we don't necessarily want to stop to level 3 and 4 stars. And so being able to pull these and get them already leveled and possibly even double limit broken, because the reality is I don't think a lot of us want to spend alpha aethers on 3 and 4 stars. We just don't. Like, I think we want to save our alpha aethers most of the time for our 5 stars. And so with that in mind, I think it was very cool to be able to pull out of these and try to get some of them double limit broken. And all you would really have to invest in at that point is your talents. So it does take a little food, does take some talents. I get all of that, right? But you get some good stuff. So I had got quite a few 3 and 4 stars actually double limit broken by luck. Like, I mean, some people didn't get as many double limit broken ones, and that's okay as well. So with that in mind, just understand that there was a lot of value in this, not just in getting the 5 stars, but in making sure that you got 3 and 4 stars as well for your roster to flush it out. And the one negative side effect of this, because I think the rest of it was fantastic and a great value, is that I have plugged up my roster. This many additional 3 and 4 stars that are like double limit broken or single limit broken and worth investing in, etc., has created a real issue with space. So they're probably going to end up getting roster space deals out of me, or I'm just going to buy some roster space because I'm not going to want to throw away these new gained resources, but it's definitely making it much harder to level because I have less spaces available. I'm sure you're all feeling that crunch as well at the end of the week if you participated in this portal, but I do give them kudos. I think it was a great way to go. I'm still tempted to do more polls, but I know that I should stop right now because the truth is December is coming. There'll be more stuff to look forward to there. There'll be more gem challenge polls. There will be more mimics that are out that are you're going to want to chase, etc. So just understand that, like, be thankful for what you were given, but also remember there is more to come. All right, so that's all we're going to say on Black Friday. We'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. All right, so we've made it to the quality of life section of the video. In this video, we're going to be discussing a few things. This also happens to be where I decided to tuck the soul exchange conversation. We should have one, and we will. We will go into that. We will talk about that, and I will do that momentarily. But also, I want to talk about the fact that there is going to be the section on the guaranteed 5-star dragon poll. We'll go into Titan loot woes and forums gone updates. I promise I try to keep people informed on what to do about the lack of the forums, and I'm going to offer a few suggestions at the end of that segment too. So let's go ahead and move into the first part where we will be talking about our soul exchange. So let's go ahead and get into it. The soul exchange. All right, so this soul exchange will, of course, be our November 2025 soul exchange, and we can have a discussion about what we think of these choices and what sort of things occurred within this process. In other words, the last soul exchange, I was not particularly excited with. I felt like they didn't necessarily provide a lot of value in it, and even with all the options available, I chose to skip it because I just didn't feel like I was gaining enough out of that particular soul exchange, and I wanted to save my resources for the following one. So ultimately, this is what happened. This is what we got. We had our 10, our 15, our 20 soul tiers. Now, I will say this. I was kind of hopeful that they would do a little bit more with the power creep with soul exchange, kind of make these heroes a little bit more relevant. They didn't do a lot of that. But what they did do was add a lot of very valuable utility within some of these characters. For example, in this first tier, we have a very solid Resurrector from the Clash of Knights event. So, like, definitely an interesting character and a good way to go. If you don't have a Resurrector for your roster, they were offering you a pretty viable one at 10 souls, which I thought was a really cool offering. They also had Nogu here, who has a very unique ability as being a fast sniper, but then also changes all boosted health received into max health reduction instead for the target nearby that he hits for 3 turns. This is a very strong counter character to boosted health healers, which can make him incredibly useful, also available at 10. So I think that those two characters alone, plus some of the other things they offered, the hero of the month wasn't super exciting here in Elaine, but she is a very good damager, and she was a dispeller, which is pretty cool. And we had the opera, or the Phantom of the Opera guy. He does do dance effects, which, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not in love with that concept, especially with his stats falling off, but dance and ballads are pretty powerful, and they're not an effect that should be underestimated, so getting them into your roster was good too. In the 15 soul range, they offered us some more unique utility. Very good healer in Carta. Stats are falling off a little bit, but massive heals come out of that character. Then we also have Elver, who is also from the Clash of Knights one, and he's an interesting character. Not a lot of people, I think, had an opportunity to get their hands on Elver, but he is a very powerful character for controlling the board state, and he is unique in a lot of ways to the ways that he does it. So I think him at 15 was a wonderful steal. He was also, I think, the strongest CP in the portal other than the costume, which was interesting that he was in the 15 range. Then we also had some other cool characters, Daroga, Satori, and again, down here at 20 souls, these are the cream of the crops. Honestly, I would have liked to see a little bit stronger heroes here, but it's fine. We did get some really cool stuff. First of all, Darkfeather was a champion of his time. Unfortunately, his stats have really fallen off, which makes me question his value at 20, but whatever. We had Lemonwood. We had Damon. Damon is like the master skeleton key for being able to shut down individual heroes in the game. I think he's very cool for that extent, and even though his stats are falling off, I think he's always going to have a purpose in a team functioning at very fast to simply disable and disrupt the flow of their plan. Our only costume in the whole portal came at a healer at 20, and she was a fantastic healer from Dunes. I highly recommended to people that they considered getting her, especially if they were looking for like a war defense healer. She would have the stats and the heal potential to really manage and hang with the current heroes of our meta today. And last but not least, Mena is a very frustrating and annoying mana control character. I'm sure we are familiar with who Mena is and why they are annoying, but they're also very hard to kill due to the fluffy skin. So there was some really cool stuff. I do think this was a fun soul exchange. If anyone was curious, I did decide myself to go for the healer after some soul searching. I was really torn between Elver and the healer. I thought both of them were very cool. Last minute, I decided go ahead and go for the healer. And I did it just because I feel like it's always better to invest in the future in a game that has a power creep. In other words, you want to try to stay ahead of the curve, not be dumping resources into someone who's already starting to fall behind. And I think this just makes your roster planning easier for future endeavors. That being said, even after investing in this, the ironic thing is I literally pulled her 2 days later from the Black Friday summon portal. Right? Like literally. How crazy is that, right? 2 days later, the very next 5-star I pull happened to be her. So that was a little bit disappointing, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes in this game, you can't control what you're going to pull or when you're going to pull it. I still think I made the right choice in selecting her, but given that hindsight is 2020, I do wish that I had considered maybe perhaps making the wrong choice at the time in selecting Elver, because then I would have still got her anyways. But moving on from there, Soul Exchange was cool. I like it, but I still want them to increase the overall CP available of the heroes here. And I think the reason I say that is I want the heroes in Soul Exchange to keep up with our current power creep. In other words, if we are going up at a power creep of about 10 a month, then our Soul Exchange coming every 3 months, I want it to increase at a power creep of about 30 each time that we see a Soul Exchange. And I think this is important because if we don't, what's going to happen is we're just going to be spending a heck of a lot of souls on characters that are just going to be falling further and further behind the power creep. And I think realistically, they should just do better for us. It's not easy to get a lot of these heroes in order to trade in for these. So let us trade in for something significant once every 3 months, right? Like, we had to pull to get these things to trade in the first place. Like, give us some respect and give us something of real value when we do this. I think that's something I would like them to focus on a little bit more in the future so that we can continue to succeed and do well and look forward to Soul Exchanges and not eventually just be like, who cares about Soul Exchange, right? So that's what I'll say about that. And let's move on to the next topic. Okay, and next up, we're going to go ahead and start talking about the Guaranteed 5-Star Dragon. This is something I do want to be thankful for that Empires and Puzzles decided to include within the game. And they seem to be offering it at a reasonable clip where you can end up getting this chance to pull a Guaranteed 5-Star Dragon. I don't think dragons took off anywhere near as well as Empires and Puzzles would have liked them to. It was kind of a gimmick concept. They sort of created a game inside the game, and it was basically the same game, but starting from scratch again. I don't think a lot of people really found that very amusing. To be fair, dragons are fun, right? Who doesn't like dragons? They're cool. I like sort of having them. They do create interesting dynamics, but I certainly don't have much interest in spending time, energy, or effort into buying or getting that many pulls in this particular aspect of the game. In fact, for the most part, my strategy has been to just have the training camp going, and work on 5-star dragons that way. And it's been pretty effective, honestly. But moving on from there, I do think that for people who put even less effort into this part of the game than I do, this 5-star dragon pull option is a good way to go and allows people to end up picking up some 5-star dragons. It was fun. I did a video for the one that I pulled. I ended up getting a blue dragon this time around. I think it was Dreamweaver or Dreamcatcher, something like that. Anyways, it's cool because I didn't have a 5-star blue. So once again, there was some benefit gained from this, and I am still working on leveling it up because I don't level these things very quickly. They'll get there. But again, it adds to my roster. The biggest problem that I've had with dragons of recent, though, is the fact that it's very hard to max limit break these 5-star dragons. Like, it takes a lot of materials. And although I understand that part of this is on me for not being fully on top of collecting all these materials as I can, in other words, I should clear more of the dragon path. I should make sure that I don't miss these quests when they rotate through for the single, items needed for the 5-star dragon breaks. But I haven't been on top of that 100%. So at this point, I still haven't max limit broke a single 5-star dragon. I have a ton of them at 370, and that's fine. It's been adequate for everything that I need to do within the game. And I know eventually I'll start breaking them, but I do think that we need to make that a little bit easier for people to get there and max out these dragons, if at all possible. All right, so that's what I have to say about that, but I am thankful that they are continuing to give us these quests for the guaranteed 5-star dragons. I think that's a fantastic way to ensure that dragons stay relevant and at least somewhat interesting for players. Next up, let's go ahead and get into our Titan loot woes. This has been an ongoing issue for a long time, right? The Titan loot is just pitiful. And I understand that they're giving us more bounties. They did end up giving us more bounty slots, but I'll tell you, these bounty slots have been very, very, very stingy. I get food crates or random items the majority of the time. Stuff that's not particularly useful for me when it comes to the overall picture of my gameplay, right? These little item boosts, I don't even use all these items all the time. I don't really care about that. I would like to get something of significance. And through the month of November, I am not sure that I really got much of anything of significance from my Titan loots, which is crazy because we're killing a Titan almost every day. So why is it that I'm not seeing something out of these premium loot bounties? I think it's just because they tweaked it too low, right? They were worried when it first came out that they were giving away too much, and then they tweaked it, to a point where I think it's just too stingy now. We got to Goldilocks this, right? And get it just in the middle, somewhere that's going to be good for everyone. Because right now, it's just silly. So hopefully they will think about that and just increase it a little bit, because there should be more significance and more meaning in completing the Titans daily. Even the Titan chest rewards have really been much less impressive of recent. And I'm pretty sure they quiet nerfed that without talking about it as well. So again, hopefully they just rethink this process and create a little more viability to Titans moving forward. And then last but not least, in our quality of life changes, I want to talk about the forums being gone still. That's still the case. The forums aren't coming back. I don't think they have interest in doing that. But it has left a big void within our life for how we get information on characters, because we used to go to the forums to be able to do so. Can't do that as much anymore. So what I'm suggesting instead is that you consider some ulterior routes. And I'm going to give you a couple of resources that I have been using myself to help make this a little bit easier. The first thing I am going to point out is that for people using Discord specifically, there is another content creator. I'm sure most people are familiar with McNulty Gamed. That's McNulty Gamed if you are not. This gentleman does reviews very similar to myself, so you'll see them from him. He's a lot more accomplished than he's been doing it for a little bit longer. That's not to say that, they're necessarily better. He's just finessed the process a lot. So, they're a smoother, cleaner video, if you will. And he has quite a bit of followers that have helped him in his Discord create a archive of all of the families of heroes within this game and pictures of these characters at their max level, so that you can see the potential these characters have, which isn't always available to us within the game or on the website anymore. And so I believe his Discord channel name is McNulty Beer Garden. So you can kind of search for that. You should be able to get in. It's not a big deal. And then you can go ahead and look through there and see some of the information on these characters. Now, that's on the Discord side of things. The best resources I've found for people who are using Line is something called Heimdall. It's a channel in the Line groups called Heimdall. I believe it's on version 3 now. There might be different channels for each version. But either way, Heimdall is a very interesting automated system that they've created in Line, where when you type in a character's name, right, it's going to bring up a automatically bring up a picture of that character at 80 and at 90. It's going to, in some cases, suggest talent paths and some information on the character. It's a pretty cool resource that they've been developing over time. I do use that as well to try to search up some of these pictures for characters when they do like the gem challenge summons, etc., just so that I have something to present when I'm making content. So I'm sharing these resources with you as an audience so that hopefully you too can have a place to go to find some of this information so that you can prepare your roster in the best way possible. So that's all I really have to bring up right now for updates on the forum being gone and things you could do to make your life a little bit easier. We're going to go ahead and move our way on to the next section. All right, let's roll into the meta changes that we are facing currently in our setups for wars and or raiding, etc. A couple things to consider here. There have been the introduction of a couple new families, which has made things interesting to say the very least. For example, the Brave and the Beautiful have reached the scene, and they've been making things a little bit more difficult, mostly because of their ability to flip the ailment damage into healing instead. So a lot of dot-heavy teams have been out there that sort of affect the field and do this and that. Well, they've created this risk that if you make a dot-heavy team, that they're just going to come in there and heal and get stronger because of it. So I think that's definitely shaken up a bit of the meta, and it makes you question how you have to approach things. You no longer just have to worry about reflex or resists. You actually have to worry about your debuffs increasing your opponent's strength. And I think that is probably one of the more difficult changes that we've had to deal with. The other thing I will say is that our Valiant Vegetables, they still very much exist. They still very much are a headache, but they are releasing more and more characters that seem designed to counter these Valiant Vegetables. Not to say that we all get to pull these brand new heroes, but there was a Magic Carpet hero that destroys all fiends from all allies, then heals. There's a new Demon hero that just recently released that does the same thing. I think there's a couple other things that we're picking on the fiend characters as well. So just understand that they are creating systems to counter the annoying Valiant Vegetable fiend problem that we are facing. I do think it's interesting, though, that the Valiant Vegetables are going to continue to be a thing, and they will continue to get more what's the right word? More prominent, because eventually they are going to get their own event or whatever the case may be, and we will see more vegetables released. So yeah, we've got, you know, that crazy tomato and I forget what the purple one is. Anyway, but who knows? Maybe eventually there'll be like onions and I don't know, turnips and cauliflower. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see where they take the Valiant Vegetables moving forward, right? Either way, we don't have to deal with them quite as much. I've seen a lot of drop off in their showing up in my sort of raids and wars. They are still there, but not like they were previously. That being said, we are facing new dilemma in the Black Friday heroes that were released. Elaine and Duval. Yeah, there we go. So Elaine and Duval, they are part of the Shady Scoundrel family. They're a bit of a menace, right? This ambush concept that Lane has, it might be a little bit too strong. I don't know if they're going to tweak that or not, but it creates this incredibly strong state that they go into, right? Where they're dealing 50% more damage, they're taking 40% less damage, and they're immune to like status ailments and effects while they're in ambush. And the only way to break ambush can't be dispelled. The only way to break it is by doing 1,500 damage to them, right? But the ironic part here is that, of course, the damage is reduced, right? So that 1,500 is reduced by 40% damage reduction goes into that. So like that 1,500 is more like what, 2,200 or something like that. 2,200 normal damage, hitting that 40% reduction to get to that 1,500 to break this effect is just a lot, right? It's just a lot, especially considering it doesn't take that long for the character to get their special back off again, and then Lane will refresh his ambush, and you have to go through this whole process again. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to stay the way it is, but they're also quite frustrating because they steal buffs. They steal buffs every turn. Oh, well, that's not true. They have a 50% chance to steal buffs every turn. But it's not just buffs, right? It's also growth effects. It's also stacks. So I just did a war where I was fighting a few of these guys, and it's very frustrating because I planned on taking Beowulf against the team, but then I thought about it, and I'm like, gosh, Beowulf does a stacking attack for everyone. These guys, because they had both, honestly. They had Lane and they had Duval on their team, which was kind of crazy. We won't talk about how much they probably spent to get there because they were maxed already. But regardless of that, I just figured they're going to steal all my stacking of buffs. Like, I don't dare take a character like Beowulf against them unless I just want to end up killing myself with my own strength. So that sort of thing is definitely going to affect the meta, I think. We're going to have to deal with the headache that comes along with these new heroes. Hopefully you don't run into two of them at the same time. I think that was a little bit too much. I think I could have tackled one just fine. I did lose that fight, mostly because I just don't, like, they just killed me faster than I could kill them. That's really what it came down to. And Lane being able to hide and ambush and take that 40% less damage is a big reason why they outlasted me. So, you know what? We'll see how it all goes. But I'm warning you, expect to see a lot of these shady scoundrels in the next months to come. And other than that, the same sort of concepts overall are in play. Mana reduction effects or, mana debuffs, etc. They're kind of a huge thing within the meta, and I don't think that's going anywhere for the moment. So definitely expect to see lots of mana manipulation. Other than that, though, it's been pretty straightforward. We'll see what happens when the whatchamacallit comes into play, the Christmas heroes. Maybe they might change something on the scene. You know what? One last final note. I'm sorry, I didn't cover this before, but with the introduction of the sheer number of Wildcats that are now available for people to get, we have started seeing players that are doing a full Wildcat team. I've seen this several times in raiding. I've seen this several times in war now. It's a headache, right? Like, these guys just pop up. You never know if you kill someone. You don't know what's going on. A lot of times they aren't even running healers because they're like, whatever, I'll just keep popping back up. It's annoying, but I don't know if it's necessarily overpowered, because in reality, especially the teams that are so bold as to not run a healer, you just keep killing them until they don't get back up again, right? That's the strategy. So I don't know if that's like overly hard to figure out how to win, but it can be very frustrating when they're getting back up and you're not, right? So just understand that one approach I've taken towards these teams is that I've taken my resurrectors so that I also have a chance to get back up, and we just play a prolonged game of who's going to outlast who. So just keep that in mind when facing them. Maybe you want to consider bringing some of that potential to get people back up from your team as well. All right, I think that's enough for covering the meta changes for now. Just be prepared. Remember, there will be a raid brawl coming up in December as well. Although I expected this to be the Christmas raid brawl, it doesn't look like they're buffing the Christmas heroes for it. Very strange, right? Whatever the case may be. But just be aware that there will be a raid brawl coming in December, and that is something that you are going to want to pay attention to for which heroes are buffed, and take advantage of that for your raid brawling goodness. All right, thanks, guys. We'll catch you in the last section. All right, friends, thank you for making it to the final part of this particular State of the Game video, where we will be reviewing the December calendar, talking about what's coming up, what to look forward to, and all of that fun stuff as well. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We will start over here at the beginning. We'll zoom in just a little bit. So as we can see on the first here, we are going to be starting the Santa's Challenge event. So right at December 1st, we're going to get access to the new winter seasonal heroes. I think there are 2 new releases, as well as a costume for Ginger. Interesting, right? Like, I have Ginger at 80. I pulled her a couple years ago. Will I get her costume? Who knows? But it could be fun if I do. I might consider taking her higher than 80 if I do, but she was always kind of more of a gimmick character than like a significant impact character. All right. We, of course, have our Magic Tower going on. Astral Plane is still going. Then coming up on Wednesday the 3rd, we're looking at the Shadows of the Deep portal. So some more insanity craziness shall be coming our way. Then on Saturday the 6th, we have the Beowulf Challenge arriving. I am kind of surprised to see the Beowulf Challenge here. I don't know how many more Beowulf characters we're getting, but I was kind of expecting that portal to start wrapping itself up. So how many more of them we see, I don't know, but I'm guessing probably not too many more. We will also have a contest of elements. It looks like it's going to be for, it looks like it's going to be, is that for green maybe? I don't know if that's what they're trying to imply there, but it would make sense. I think we are due for a green super elemental costume next. Then we also have Ancient Underroot showing up on Tuesday the 9th. So for our dragon fans, you'll be able to do that. And then we have the Hero League sign up starting on Tuesday the 9th as well. So that's going to let you have some time to sign up and start prepping your teams for the Hero League, and they'll let you know which families get the bonuses. Then on the, Thursday the 11th, we have Costume Chamber. So Costume Chamber came a lot sooner in this particular month. Will there be something interesting there? I'm guessing we get our last glass costumes in this particular chamber. So the real question becomes, with the glass costumes being fully released, how long before we start seeing the new costumes for Season 1? We've already heard hints and rumors that there is going to be a new sort of like mobster-esque setup for Season 1 heroes, so we do fully expect there to be another set of costumes. When that gets to us, we don't know. All right, then on Sunday the 14th, it looks like we are going to be starting the War of Three Kingdoms, which is kind of nice. They did skip War of Three Kingdoms this particular month, or at least they delayed it, I guess might be a better way of looking at it. So it'll be nice to get that back into things that we can work on. And then for that particular week, it looks a little bit light all the way up till Friday, where we will get the Alliance Quest, the Brave, and the Beautiful returning. This is exciting, right? I think a lot of people are looking forward to seeing more heroes from this family. They have been pretty powerful and pretty sought after pieces for the current meta. So we'll see what they bring after that. And then we'll have a blue contest of elements later in the month, starting on Sunday the 21st. So that's kind of fun. Then following that, we'll have Ancient Underroot again on Tuesday the 23rd, followed by Wednesday, we have Astral Planes coming in, so that will be Wednesday the 26th. And then on Thursday, is that Thursday that's starting? Looks like Thursday. The 25th, it looks like Hero Coach arrives. That might be Friday the 26th, though. I can't quite tell based on how they put that there. But Hero Coach will be arriving. This is very important to remember. So either on the 25th or the 26th, so towards the end of the month, we will be getting Hero Coach back. It is time to start thinking about who you would like to Hero Coach. And remember, you can Hero Coach characters that are 2 years old, or you can Hero Coach characters with costumes whose base is 2 years old, but their costumes are newer. Then you just have to level the costume. This is a fantastic way to level costume characters that you have collected, but don't necessarily want to spend the time, energy, or effort to get their base up. You can do it with Hero Coach, and then you just have to finish the costume off. It makes it a lot easier to do, and it's been the same strategy I have used for pretty much every Hero Coach ever. In fact, it's been 3 kingdoms for me. Like I have done 3 kingdoms for pretty much all of them. I started with Cao Cao. The second one was Lu Boy, and then I went to Dia Chen. So that was kind of fun, right? This time around, I don't know if I'm sticking with 3 kingdoms, although I do have one more of that family to level up. I will most likely do the soul exchange that I picked, which was the Blue Dunes healer, Hephaestus, or however you pronounce their name. So that way I can avoid having to spend the alphas to limit break her, but I could get another viable healer up from my roster. Again, you might just want to think about what your plan is for Hero Coach at the end of the month. All right, and then also Magic Tower is kicking in on Saturday the 27th. Dragon Cove will also be at the end of the month. A little bit less exciting, but it is nice to have the Dragon Cave, not Cove. It is fun to have it, right? These additional mats necessary to push your dragons to the next tier is important to get, so no complaints there. And then we will take a look here. It looks like Shadows of the Deep will be returning on the 29th. So Monday the 29th, we will be getting a second Shadows of the Deep portal in the month of December. So that's interesting. I didn't necessarily expect to see them do that, but we will have quite a few Insanity characters to look forward to in December. Then Tower of Magic goes to the end of the month, and that will pretty much bring us to the end of December, and more importantly, the end of 2025 as well. So we can put another year on the books of Empires and Puzzles, and we can look forward to what 2026 brings us. I am very curious to see if they sneak anything else into this calendar, because although it is packed with things to do in December, I am noticing this week right here of the 15th through the 21st to be pretty light on events, so who knows what they may or may not put in here. I think if I were a betting man, that I would expect that perhaps this is where the Tower event should be located, the one that they didn't have ready for this current month, right? I think that it would slot itself nicely into that week, in which we would then be able to do, hopefully, the Tower event for the first time, but have access to more heroes of that particular family and continue their progression there as well. So I kind of do expect them to do something like that. I don't know if there will be any other fun pop-up events. I wasn't sure if they'd consider doing Monster Island again, but it doesn't look like it. Who knows what it is that they might decide to sneak in. But either way, this is what they put officially released for us to look forward to for December. And I appreciate you guys tuning into this. I know these are always longer videos to listen to, but this content is meant to be consumed at whatever pace you like. This is a once a month release, so you can certainly stop and come back and listen to it whenever it is convenient for you. I do enjoy these particular videos. I plan on keeping them going on the first of every month, just so that we can have a sort of review of how Empires and Puzzles is doing, and also for myself to have sort of a time capsule to look back and see what I was experiencing at this point in time in my Empires and Puzzles playing. And I think that's just kind of a fun concept. So if you think that's cool as well, you're welcome to click that little button at the bottom right. It'll help you find me easier next time, and that way we can continue to explore this game together. All right, thanks.